All right. Hey, thank you so much for attending our webinar. So this is Dr. Kate Rogers.
Hi.
She works with the OCD and Anxiety Treatment Center, and we are in Austin, Texas at the International OCD Foundation Conference. It's an amazing conference they hold every year where they hold 3 different tracks where the families and people who are suffering with OCD, people who are the researchers, and then there's a track for the clinicians to teach people how to do this great work. And so, yeah, it's been great. We've been able to go to a few classes this morning, and we get to a couple more days of this. And so, Dr. Kate Rogers, the reason why I wanted her to be with us today is that I call her the OCD ninja. She is so amazing. She has such great skill. She is able to break down tough issues and really make a difference in people's lives. And one of those tough issues that I've seen her be able to work on and really make a difference is accommodation. And that's why I wanted her here, and I wanted to talk about it. And so I wanted to ask you, Kate, how would you define accommodation?
Accommodation is one of the things that it could be so many different things. It could look like so many different things, but really it all comes down to changing something about your life to accommodate the OCD, to accommodate somebody that has a lot of anxiety, to protect them from it. It's done with all the love in the world usually, and sometimes out of fatigue, and it doesn't actually help. Right. And so it gets really frustrating for people.
Right. And so there's a reason why people will do it. They see their loved one hurting. Why would I not want to step in and do something? Is there any examples that you can think of what accommodation would actually look like?
The things that people think about most often are things like buying soap for people that have contamination concerns and they wash their hands a lot. So purchasing soap, but it can be even broader than that. It could be things like providing a rent-free place to live so that somebody doesn't have to go to work because work is really scary. It could be things like being really careful about what you say to make sure that you don't trigger an intrusive thought that's really going to scare somebody. It could be things like doing compulsions for someone. Somebody's not sure that they locked the door. And so one of their compulsions is asking you to go check for them because they can trust you. They can't trust their own brain.
Right.
And so they go and find themselves doing compulsions that aren't their compulsions, but they're the ones going through the motions. That's what accommodation can look like.
Right. And so, I have seen many times in my practice where people, it's almost always done with good intent. It's never done because they're trying to destroy the other person. But it's interesting, it doesn't get it better. It never, in fact, actually, before this started, I was talking to Dr. Rogers and about how it's almost like a heroin addiction. You see the person who's coming down from heroin and how hard it is for them, and they're struggling, they're sweating, and it looks like they're going to die. And how easy would it be
to hand them some heroin?
Hand them some heroin, and then guess what? They're going to need it again and again. And in fact, over time, their world even gets smaller.
And you become their dealer.
You become their dealer.
That's what accommodation is. You're their dealer.
Yes. And so it has to change. And one thing we know from experience is that you start changing that on somebody who's been depending on it. They're not going to be happy about it. I mean, nobody likes the rules of the game to be changed in the middle of the game. And all of a sudden, you aren't going to buy that soap, or you're not going to say that word, or you're not going to go check that thing, or you're not going to go do that thing that they need you to do. They're going to feel like you don't love them.
Yeah.
They're going to feel like you are angry with them. I've had clients in my office where their partner or their spouse is like, why, if they loved me, they would just go check. And
they say those exact words.
And it's like, but they aren't struggling with this. They're not worried about that thing. And so their agency is being taken away from them to have to go do this thing, and they don't want to do it. And it has nothing to do with love. In fact, for them, they just don't get it. But they love the person, so that's why they will do it and do it and do it until, man, I don't want to do it anymore. And so with accommodation, how is it ever a good thing to have accommodation?
That's a really good question. I feel like that's the question that comes up the most when I talk to family members of our clients. Is say, but what about this? But what about this? But it's just easier, right? And I always say, no, it's really never helpful. And what it does at the end of the day is it removes somebody's opportunities to learn something new. And that's the core of the treatment that we really do. You're taking away their opportunity to learn something new, to change, and to get their life back. You're keeping them in their cage. It feels nice and safe in there, but it's a cage. And so the reality is that sometimes the accommodation has gotten so big and it's taken over every facet of a family's life. And so when I say, let's take that away, that's such a big concept, and it's going to affect so many different things. So I often say the best strategy is to come together as a team, list it all out. All the accommodation you haven't even noticed is accommodation. And then decide what's going to be taken away. What is that going to look like? When is it going to happen? Is everyone in the family, everyone, even little baby sister, can come together and make that decision. It allows us to do this in a gradual way where we don't actually get stuck. So you don't have to sweep the rug out from under them absolutely all at once, and you do have to work towards it.
Right.
It's very structured.
That's right. I look at it as like the goldfish you get from the pet store. If you get a fish and they give you in the nice little bag and you go home, you drop it right into the fish tank and the fish dies. Right? Because it hasn't had time to adjust to all of it. Somebody has all this accommodation happening to them, they'll do the same thing. They will not do well. But, as they tell you at the pet store, you take that bag and you put it into the water and you let it sit there. And then, for so many minutes, and then you're going to slowly pour it out, and then don't touch the tank. And then it has a higher success rate.
But you're also not going to leave the fish in the bag.
You're not going to.
It'll die.
It will die. And that's the thing, is that you cannot do accommodation and feel and think that they're going to get better. They will not get better. That all it does is it will make their tomorrow worse.
Yeah. Tomorrow at best.
And so there's this term called extinction bursts. And I thought that you would be perfect to describe what that is.
I love talking about extinction bursts because they're so human. So the reality of taking away accommodation, even if you do it in this beautiful way, everyone comes together as a team, everyone agrees on what's going to happen. Still, once it happens, we often see these extinction bursts. And I like to use a metaphor when I talk about extinction bursts that a former supervisor of mine taught me years ago. And I often look at people and ask them, Paul, have you ever used a vending machine?
Yes, I have.
Of course, we've all used a vending machine. And so we all understand what a vending machine is and how it works. You see the vending machine, you go, you see the snack that you want, got your money, you put it in, it goes, shh, and then you push the little buttons for your snacky snack, and the snack comes out, and you're like, yay, snack. Thank you, vending machine. Have a lovely day. That's what we come to expect. And have you ever had the experience of going to the vending machine, putting your money in, pushing the buttons, do, and the snacky snack goes, and then just like dangles there.
Right there.
It just taunts you.
Yes.
What'd you do to the vending machine, Paul?
Smack it.
Of course, Paul's a grown man. He's a professional. Paul's our CEO, and he would attack a vending machine. And that is an extinction burst. And it is so human that if you just be real with yourselves for a moment, even if you have absolutely no mental illness whatsoever, just average person, grown adult, you've hit a vending machine.
Right. So could you give us an example of an extinction burst happening?
Absolutely. What this often really looks like is a tantrum. You think of little kids, like little 2 and 3-year-olds throwing these massive tantrums. I have a 1-year-old little boy, and I recently, they tantrum for truly no reason at all. And he recently asked me for a popsicle. And so I gave him a popsicle, the exact popsicle he had asked for. And his response was to throw himself on the floor and cry. Still to this day, I have no idea what really happened there. But tantrums are big. Tantrums are loud. Tantrums can feel hurtful to the other person, especially when they're just trying to help.
Right.
Like, I gave you the popsicle. What's happening?
Right.
And this is what happens especially with OCD, when even once we've agreed to it, we take away that accommodation, and it's scary for the person. And so they lash out, just like at the vending machine. Their loved one has broken the long-standing deal that they will check the door for them. They will buy the soap. They will provide a rent-free, safe space. And so we see a tantrum, and it looks remarkably similar to my 1-year-old, actually.
Right.
And it's hard for family members to see this happen because it feels sometimes like a personal attack, and you can see the pain in their loved one's face. And so they bail, and they respond with more accommodation. They give in.
Yeah.
And so it looks like, I stopped buying soap, and this person has something triggered their contamination fears, and all of a sudden they have a meltdown, and they're screaming, and they're crying. You can see the pain and the fear on their face, and they go begging their parents for soap.
Absolutely.
Begging. I just need soap just this one time. If you loved me, you would do it. If you don't do it, I'll hurt myself. We often hear that. And so the loving parents run to Walmart, open 24 hours, and buy soap. And the cycle continues.
Right. And so to extinguish it, as we say in our office, through the pain, out of the pain. There is no way. I mean, they're in this mess. It is a terrible mess, and there isn't another way out. There's nothing you're going to say or do that's going to convince them that they no longer need that accommodation. It's going to happen because they stop getting their drug. And so how do you do it? How do you, what are some of the tricks or tips that you would give to some of your clients or even to their family members?
Yeah, to their family members. The first thing I do is when I give these tips, I do it with the client present. I always do, because I want the client to know exactly what's happening. We want to approach this as a team as much as we can. And I'll speak to the family members really directly, because they're the ones that are going to have to ride this out too. So I often tell clients and family members the skills that we teach about going through the pain to get out of the pain, that's good for everyone. You don't need a diagnosis to live that. It's good for everyone. And so one of the things I teach is this is going to be scary for the client's family and for the client. And when something's scary, don't run away. Practice all the things. Have a beautiful moment of solidarity. They're so, so powerful, these moments of solidarity, where the family member really gets to model the skills, experience them, get a tiny window into what this person's life is like every day. And that can really help ride out the extinction burst and help the family members stick to their guns and not give in and hand them heroin.
Right. I also I use the example often of a person who has a metal bar sticking out of their head, right? And if they were asking you to make accommodations like, hey, can you give me a nice pillow that has a hole in it so I can put it through the bar so I can sleep better, would you do it? Or would you be like, maybe we should do the treatment that's going to help you in the long run?
Take the bar out.
Take the bar out, yes. But here's the thing, though, is that person with a metal bar sticking out of their head, would you get angry with them if they're lashing at you because you're not getting them that pillow? Or would you be blaming the bar in their head for why they're behaving the way they are? And so one of those tips while you're doing this change with accommodation is recognize they're going to highly or very likely be irritated and annoyed and frustrated. And don't look at how they're behaving. Look at what's happening to them. What's happening to them is much more important than how they're behaving. And I think some people confuse that with the fact that you can think with a brain, therefore you should have more control of your symptoms, although you don't have control of the fact that bar is in your head. And so we accept that the behavior is not acceptable, or the behavior is not acceptable, or we can be more gracious or accepting of it because there's a metal bar. But it's no different. There's a metal bar in their head. That's why they require those accommodations to survive. And it would be easier for them if that metal bar was there, because then people would, as they're lashing out, they would treat it more nicely.
And that's what we're really wanting to incorporate into when you're removing accommodations. Do so compassionately. And that's why I always give the vending machine example, because somebody with OCD is dealing with such torment every single day. Right. We often use words like anxiety, distress, discomfort. None of that's quite right. It's terror. It's so much suffering. And if we can all understand that when we don't get our snack, we'll hit a machine as grown adults, it's easier to give compassion to somebody that's struggling with something that's actually so much harder. Right.
And so, going back to those tips, another thing that I feel like can be really, really helpful is as Dr. Rogers talked about, having the client in the room while we're talking about these things. There's no surprises. There's nothing that we're trying to get under or get by them. We're just trying to get everybody on the same page. And so we talk about it. This is what's happening. This is why we don't want it to happen anymore. This is what we're going to do. And this is why we're going to do it. And this is what we're going to anticipate that's going to happen. And then maybe you can get the client to talk about what their family member can do in those moments when their logic is so far out of the building that they're not thinking straight. So what can they do? So they tell their family member, or their loved one, or somebody who's helping them, this is what you can do when I'm in that state. And here's the thing, is that at the end of the day, it still might not work. And so you can always, after, when the dust is settled and the next time they're feeling better, okay, that didn't work. Is there something else I can do? Do I need to just run out of the house when you start screaming at me? Do I need to just give you a hug? Do I need to tell you how much I love you? Do I need to start screaming at your issue, at your OCD, at your anxiety, and be angry with you that this is happening?
Some nice joining there.
Whatever it is, but let's look at the solution of getting to the other side instead of just continuing on, because accommodation is much easier.
One of the things I always tell people when we talk to families about accommodation is I look into their eyes and I tell them, you will 100% mess this up. 100%.
Yeah.
Everybody will. And so one of the biggest pitfalls here is that when it doesn't go the way they think it's going to go, when they get an extinction burst they couldn't handle and they thought they'd be able to, when they give in, they feel like the whole system has to be thrown out. The whole system failed them, and they give up and they go back to the way they've always lived and they get back in the cage. And they don't need to do that. I want everybody to know that it will be bumpy.
Right.
You will mess it up. Try again. Everything has to be customized.
Yes.
Because there's no blanket statement. It looks different for every family, for every individual, and it just has to.
Absolutely. And here's the other thing, is that we're talking about chronic disorders, meaning that this is going to happen for the rest of their life. Accommodation doesn't end just because you made a good plan and stopped these accommodations. What's going to happen 2 years from now, 3 years, 22 years from now? That OCD, anxiety, is sneaky. And before you know it, accommodation is trying to sneak in because it is the easiest way. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. We recognize it and then we change it. That's how the work goes. We don't feel like we've just failed and we're a terrible person and we blew it and we're back down to zero. No, actually, you did what is typical and normal with this. And
so human.
It's very human. And so we just jump back onto what we need to do to get out of that accommodation, or shut down those accommodations and move on. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to take a few minutes and just answer questions. So if you guys want to type in any questions, we'd love to take a few minutes and answer that. You've got Dr. Rogers, who is an amazing person who can answer those questions.
One of the questions I get a lot that sometimes I can guess people are thinking this question. You can see it on their face and they look tired. I often hear people say, but isn't it easier? Isn't it easier to just give them a couple things? I'm so tired. And I often say, is it really easier? I'm known for the blunt realities in our center. I like to swoop in and drop blunt realities on everybody. And one of the blunt realities that I encourage people to look at is it really working for you? Those accommodations that can feel really a lot easier, faster, and you're already tired. You've been in the trenches for so long fighting this the wrong way. You just want something easier. And the reality is accommodation isn't going to be easier. It's going to grow. It won't stick. It really is creating more pain, more long-lasting pain.
So somebody just asked, can you give an examples, especially with compulsive cleaning?
Oh, yes. This is one of my favorite examples, actually. One of the things that comes up a lot that people struggle with is motivation for treatment, especially with teenagers. Anybody out there that has teenagers struggling with this, you are warriors, because it's already hard to have teenagers. And, people will come into our youth program with a teenager and they're like, they don't buy it. They think everything's fine. We know there's a problem, but the client thinks everything's fine. Right. And it's because of all the accommodation. One accommodation that comes up a lot with cleaning compulsions is laundry. So oftentimes I'll see a family system where one parent does the laundry. It's just like efficient. Mm-hmm. And they put everybody's laundry together. They do the laundry. It's all done. Everybody comes and gets their stuff and puts it away. And then when compulsive cleaning takes over, doing the laundry suddenly has rules.
Right.
They're not your rules if you're the one doing the laundry. They're the person with OCD. It's their rules.
Right.
And what happens is somehow the laundry becomes this massive task with all of these different rules, layers upon layers of rules. And the person's exhausted, but the person with OCD is like, we have everything's fine, because they're not doing it.
Right.
And so often what we'll do for taking away accommodation is say, okay, I'm not going to make you do the exposures. I can't make you do that. I am going to stop doing your laundry special. I'll still do your laundry even, but I'm going to do it the same way you do everybody else's laundry. And if you need your laundry done special, you do it.
Right.
And very, very quickly, you'll see teenagers become very motivated for treatment because suddenly they have to do their laundry, which they've never had to do before. And they have to do it according to these very elaborate rules. And now they're the tired one. And suddenly they're willing to do a hard treatment and go through the pain to get out of the pain.
Right. And there's other little things. I mean, like we went through compulsive cleaning. I mean, it could be that we can't use that couch. We can't go into that room. We don't, we're going to throw away these forks, or we're going to throw away this food, or because it's contaminated, or we can't go to this place because of what they've done with their food, or because of what's happened, because it's, this person who's a vagrant touched this door when you saw them when you were walking down the main street, and so we can't go into there. And so it's the places we can go, it's the things we can do, the things we can't do, the things we have to do to be able to do something. It's the person who puts their family comes into the house and they have to literally bathe themselves in with Lysol wipes. And I don't want to use a Lysol wipe, but it's not for human consumption, but or contact, and have to use it.
The whole family ends up in a cage. The whole family.
Yes. Let's see. I'm trying to scroll through these. Let's see. The question is, I have anxiety and panic attacks. I want to leave situations, places, because I feel like I'm choking. How can my family not accommodate me, but help me through the experience and not leave the situation?
That's a great question. Oftentimes, especially with panic attacks, it can look scary. And so family members, friends, random human beings off the street will rush in to help. I often train, this is one of the first little infographics that I made in my career, was what to do when your friend's having a panic attack.
Yes.
And all the common things that people do: rush them to the emergency room, tell them to take slow, deep breaths, make sure they're okay, are not helpful, right? Mm-hmm. It just makes it worse. And you still need the help and support because it's hard. Staying in that situation is what's best for you, and it's hard. And so I'll often give some, basic education about panic, that panic attacks aren't going to hurt you. Panic attacks are your body trying to be safe, actually. It's like an allergy, like overreacting to a flower. That's what panic attacks really are. It's putting in all of the survival mechanisms when they don't need to. Right. It's like allergies. And so when family members start to see it this way, the whole experience becomes less scary for them. And then they can support in a different way and cheer you on when you're in that situation. When you look to your loved ones and say, I feel like I'm choking, I'm afraid I'm going to die. Your loved ones, instead of trying to rescue you and remove you from the situation, might swoop in and be like, I'm so proud of you. You're amazing. You're a champion. How much longer do you think we can stay? Let's try to beat our score. And it becomes a family event. Yeah. Like a sport. It's really that exhausting.
Right. So another question, it sounds like you had a daughter that moved out a year ago. You're the contaminated one and you're not allowed to see her. We actually see that often.
It's hard.
And it is tough. And so, the accommodation, they're forcing the accommodation on you. They're not giving you the option to change that. And I think that one of the things you can do is just try to provide them education. Most people don't even know that they even have OCD. I can't tell you how often people come in for an assessment and like, just let you know, I don't have OCD. And because they're thinking that it's about checking, counting, sorting, and that's only just a fraction of what OCD is in our offices.
We don't even see it that much.
We don't. But it is there. But what we do is give information to them and help them feel something. So one of the things is have this person come and talk to us. Okay. Call my main office, ask for Paul Peterson. I'll talk to her for an hour.
That's true.
And love to talk with her and just help her feel something that she doesn't know even exists. And when I can start talking to her in a way that she will feel, that's a high, we have a high success rate with that. If she's not willing, then really it is trying to get her the right treatment, not just any treatment. If she's going to a therapist who is just trying to talk through her feelings, it won't change anything.
Yeah.
And so, but once we start working with her, because I guarantee you, she doesn't want you to be out of her life. She just doesn't want that contamination to happen. And the intensity of pain she feels is so high that she would rather not have to have that feeling than have you in her life, which means she is suffering so badly.
It's terrified. It's terror.
Yes. And so again, have her start talking to us, talk to a professional who actually can help, and it will open up the door or a higher probability of opening the door.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, once you can get her into the right treatment at the right place, the right people, then there's just some patience that goes with it. It is so hard when it's a loved one that's the contaminant. It is truly heartbreaking, and you see this pressure to, okay, we're finally here, fix it so I can give my kid a hug. Mm. It's all they want so desperately, and we really encourage them to get them there and then be patient and walk through the process. It might be, drop off a shirt of yours at the center so that we can use it in the programming, so that we can take those steps, those gradual steps to being free from the OCD, and it's worth it. It works. I cannot tell you how many times I remember all of them at a graduation from our program that has a contamination issue just like this, and I see somebody hug their sibling for the first time in like 3 years. I always cry. I'm a crier.
It is so amazing.
It works, but you have to be patient.
Yeah. So I've got time for a little bit, maybe a question or two more. Another one says, I have OCD. My biggest concern is my significant other betraying me in one way or another.
Oh, yeah.
He's not willing to accommodate me in any way, which is wonderful for me. But I'm having to learn to combat my fears on my own. I accommodate myself in one way by justifying my fears, but again, my support, I have.
Click the one to make
support, if I can get this.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Okay, well, let us see the end of it.
Let's see that.
But this is actually something I see a lot. So what this often sounds like is when you don't accommodate, and some people are just really good. It's like, I'm not dealing with it. Like, I'm not going to do it. And that's great. And it's not quite enough. Because that support really does still need to be there. We talked about that with the panic attacks. And if you simply disappear when someone's having a hard time, then it just feels really isolating. It feels very abandoned. And it's great to not accommodate. They still do need that active support. So that might look like just validating the person, being with them, encouraging them to do exposures, encouraging them to get to the right treatment. And that's really important because otherwise, our clients are the most clever people I've ever met. They're so resourceful. And in the absence of any accommodation, they will do it for themselves. They will find a way to still do those compulsions and find those safety behaviors. And once we get them into treatment, they really need a strong support system to help them make it through.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see, last question. How do we talk to extended family about these behaviors without compromising my child's privacy? She doesn't want me to share with them. One thing I would say is that I like the idea of bringing darkness to light. If your child had cancer, would they not want you to tell anybody about it? It would be hard. Or if they were missing a hand, would they say, don't let anybody know about it? Mm. You couldn't be able to do that. It's just seen, it's just known. And so I think one of the things is talking to your child about that, normalizing this, that this is not her fault. This is happening to her. It is a malfunction that's happening in her brain, and it's something that you can do something about. And so talk to her about all the reasons on why it's a good thing to let people know. That the more support she gets, the easier it is that, she's been doing it on her own. How has that been working for her? It doesn't work. And so what if she does the opposite of what everything inside is telling her? And so having those, trying to build her up and try to get her to be willing to do it. And then the other is if that's not enough, then have her come into some counseling. Nobody needs to know about it. And we work through it to get her to a point where she is, and then she's going to let everybody know that this is what I think, this is how I feel. And guess what? She's still an amazing person. She's still an incredible person. And it doesn't mean that she is better. She just is that and has these issues.
So
and here's the thing is that, she needs to, people need to be able to know, because if they're accommodating, and sometimes you don't even know. I mean, the accommodation can be as simple as just a simple question. We're at this conference right now, and it is amazing as you hear people talking. Many of them, this is their first time they've ever come to a conference. They're just learning about OCD, and they'll ask a question. They're not asking for the right reason. They're asking because it's going to be a reassurance. There's people left and right getting reassurance, which is an accommodation from people. From this presenter that has no idea that they're giving them accommodation. They think they're just answering their question, but they're not. They're accommodating.
Absolutely. One of the things that's really helpful to kind of walk through a dilemma just like that one described in the questions is to do it in treatment. We always make sure we have family sessions involved in everything that we do, because that could easily be a compulsion. Like, I would be very curious, why does your daughter not want to share this with family? There's so many reasons, and oftentimes we uncover compulsions we didn't even know were there. And sometimes there's just private people.
Yeah.
And it's not usually kids. In kids, it's usually compulsion.
Yeah.
So bring her in and see what we can figure out, and doing it as a team is the most helpful way to do it.
For sure. Well, we appreciate taking the time to talk with you. Appreciate Dr. Rogers coming and pulling away from the conference. And we will be posting this on YouTube, and we encourage you to watch it, to like it, to share it, and even subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much, and we will be back again next month.
Bye.